We've got to have a serious conversation about Arsenal because you know me. I love to banter Arsenal. I like to take the mick out of Arsenal fans when I can. I love a bit of football banter. I like to slander Arteta when I can because I think he's a bit of a miserable guy. But I'm honest. I'm honest about football. I think Julian Timber's been the best right back in the Premier League for the last year and incredibly underrated. I think Arsenal's defence is incredible. I think Saka is a world class player. You know, as much as I don't like Arsenal, I like to be honest. And we've got to be honest about Arsenal because right now, they are top of the Premier League right now, which is pretty mad because a couple of weeks ago, not that they were in crisis, but it felt like, oh, Liverpool are just so clear of everyone because Liverpool were finding ways to win games. Whereas I feel like sometimes with Arteta, my biggest criticism of him is when he plays Liverpool and he plays Manchester City, he plays for a draw, whilst Liverpool play to win. And I think, Arsenal need to go to Man City and go, you know what, we're better, we're going to try and win this game. They need to go to Liverpool and go, you know what, we're better, we'll try and win this game. Like, I feel like they still play for draws, and that would be my biggest criticism of Arsenal and Arteta. But look, they're top of the league right now because Liverpool have had back-to-back losses and they have Man United next. And Man United have not won back-to-back games under Ruben Amorim. And Man United have not won at Anfield in nearly 10 years. So imagine if Ruben Amorim goes to Anfield and does something crazy. I don't know. But Arsenal top of the league. Liverpool have dropped off a bit. They've been caught out a little bit. With Liverpool, they're either really good or they drop off a bit. And that drop off bit, so they need something to boost them, which is probably where Man United come in, sadly. You can never rule City out of title race, but Arsenal may feel that this is their year. City is still sort of rebuilding. Liverpool, just dropping off. They don't have that defensive depth. Arsenal this summer did one thing really well, and that was just make sure their depth is elite. This summer, Arsenal went out of their way to make sure that they've got elite level squad depth. And we're seeing that because Odegaard, Saliba, Havertz and Saka have all picked up injuries, and it's not cost Arsenal a lot. Whereas I think in the past, it would have cost Arsenal more points already. Arsenal, when they were 1-0 down to Newcastle, would have lost that game last season, or maybe drawn 1-1. They wouldn't have made it 2-1. But this season, they made that game 2-1 in the last minute. Because there's something different about Arsenal this season. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the painful truth about Arsenal that I don't want to admit. How did this happen? Arsenal, top of the Premier League going into the international break. Of course, tight margins, lots can change. Only 3 goals conceded all season, which is absolutely mad. 3 goals conceded in 7 games. The best defence in the league again. Their defence looks incredible. Liverpool have dropped off. City do look beatable. And somehow Arsenal are leading the way. Arsenal might be favourites now, and I always thought that Liverpool were going to win it this year. I can't stand it, but this Arsenal team does look like it could win the league. And do you know why? Because it's got a solid foundation. Liverpool have got this incredible attack. Manchester City have got a load of incredible players. But Arsenal have a solid foundation, which makes them difficult to beat. They've got such good defensive depth that if Saliba's injured, Mascara can go in. If Calafiore's injured, they've got Hinkapie. They've got Lewis Skelly. If Timber's injured, they've got Ben White. They've got this elite depth. If Declan Rice is injured, Subamende could play as a 6 with maybe Eze and Odegaard ahead of him. They've got this elite level depth. And where Arsenal are different to other teams is Arsenal are the hardest team to beat. Liverpool, you can score against them, but Liverpool fancy outscoring versus you. And Liverpool feel like they can outscore all their opposition and can see a few goals. With Arsenal, if you go 1-0 down to Arsenal, you've got to break them down, and that seems hard. The way to beat Arsenal is frustrate them, try and nick a goal, go 1-0 up and park the bus. And that's what Newcastle did. But then Arsenal still found a way to win 2-1. West Ham parked the bus and Arsenal struggled against those low blocks. But they won that game 2-0. They broke down a really mid-low block, a Nuno-style block from West Ham. And the reason Arsenal couldn't win the league last season was not just because Liverpool was brilliant, but it was because Arsenal had so many draws that they couldn't turn those draws into wins. And that Newcastle game for Arsenal, 2-1 win last minute, that could have been drop points. Obviously West Ham, they deserved to win, but no low block, that's one of those games that would make it hard for Arsenal, but they got those points. And I've laughed at Arsenal and trolled Arsenal and doubted Arsenal, but I will say this, the Arsenal team is serious. I know we joke that they don't win trophies, this and that, but they've got the depth to win a trophy now. They've got the depth to go far in all the competitions, because I think squad depth was a big issue last year. You went far in the Champions League, but you lost Havertz. You lost Saka. If you lose Havertz now, you've got Gyökeres. If you lose Saka now, you've got Madueke. Now it's the other way with Madueke and Saka in. But when Saka was injured, you didn't need to rush him back because you had Madueke. You've got Gyökeres, you don't need to rush Havertz back. Odegaard's injured, but Eze can do that role, and we saw Odegaard and Eze together for a little bit, and that was phenomenal. And I look at Arsenal, and I think, you know what? You're coming up against these low blocks, and you're winning those games. Last year, you would have drew those games. You're patiently grinding them out. And I think someone like Subamende coming in and setting the tempo has also helped Arsenal sort of grind those games out. So I want to talk about Arsenal's squad, but yeah, I don't want to admit it, but Arsenal can seriously win the league. I feel like nobody wants to admit this other than Arsenal fans, but they can seriously win the league this year. It's 3 goals conceded. They've got Saliba, Rice, Gabriel, just core. Rise a good goalie. Timber's been the best right back in the league this season. Calafiore's been really good. It used to be easy to rattle Arsenal. It used to be go 1-0 up, park the bus, have a low block, Arsenal will struggle. But Arsenal are horrible to play against. I'm saying this as a Man United fan. I thought we played quite well versus Arsenal. I don't think Arsenal were particularly good against Man United, but Arsenal won ugly. The reason Liverpool won the league last year wasn't just because of Arsenal's injuries, but Liverpool can win ugly. Liverpool can win when they're not at the best. Liverpool can win games and come up with last-minute winners, whereas Arsenal get the draw. But this season, Arsenal came up with a last-minute winner versus Newcastle. They came up with it. They went 1-0 down and they won a game, which is something they haven't done a lot under Arteta. Arsenal were annoying to play against as a Man United fan because the minute they went 1-0 against us, I felt like that game could have gone on for ages and we wouldn't have scored. I felt like Man United were playing well, but we couldn't score. And it was so frustrating to play Arsenal in that sense. And I look at Arsenal's depth, and I think this is what Bert has done so well in the window. Arsenal have 2 starting 11s. I did a video on it in August. They have 2 starting 11s. They've got Eze. So, okay, Odegaard's injured. Eze can come in. Saka's injured. Madueke can come in. Havertz is injured. Gyökeres can come in. Declan Rice gets injured, Subamende could come in. Saliba gets injured, Mosquera could come in. Calafiori gets injured, Hinkeby could come in. Like, all their signings, Norgard even as well, have added this depth to Arsenal. We always joke, they're signing another defender, they're signing another midfielder, but they have this elite depth because they're going to need it, because Arsenal know they have to win a trophy this year. It's been too long since they haven't won a trophy. The pressure's on Arteta. Even if it's a Carabao Cup, Arsenal are looking at it like, crap, we've got to win a trophy this year. And to have this level of depth and rotation, it helps Arsenal to go further in those competitions and say they can rotate. And also when Saka comes back, don't rush him in and cause re-injury. They've also got people like Ranieri and Max Dowman that can come off the bench. Martinelli, Trossard that can be added to that attack. And if you watch City in their peak years, City's bench was disgusting. It was so disgustingly talented. And I feel like that with Arsenal. They had all these players out injured the other week, I think versus Forest, but you still had incredible players on your bench. You had like Martinelli, you had like Dowman, Ranieri, Eze, Saka. Like, they had like so many names on your bench. Some incredible players, some young players, some promising players, but good names to have on a bench. I think for me, Martinelli isn't a best starting 11 player, but Martinelli as an option to come off the bench is a very good option to have. And you've shown, not so much last season, but the 2 seasons before, that you can go in that title race until the end. And Arsenal have shown they can be in that title race, but Arsenal haven't shown they can win titles. They haven't shown that they've got quite enough to win titles. And that is because some games where Arsenal should win, they're getting that draw. They're not coming up with that moment of magic to win that game. And I felt that Newcastle game was that moment of magic for Arsenal, where they were saying, you know what, we're different now. We can win that game. Because so many times this season, so many times in the past, Arsenal have just fallen at the final hurdle. Whether it's been through injuries, whether it's through dropping a silly point, not winning that game. They lost out on the Premier League title on the final game to Man City. Not last season, but the season before. Every point matters. And I think when you sign someone like Eze, it brings such a difference. I'm going to show my notes on Eze here. Finally, a player that can come in and unlock low blocks. He brings the flair, he brings the unpredictability, he can break the lines, he can dribble, he can create. As he gets the ball and he likes to make things happen and he glides with the ball. Gyökeres not seen the best of him, but Arsenal haven't played to his strengths, but he's got the physicality and link up and focal point he can provide for Arsenal last year that they missed when Havertz was injured. Madueke obviously injured now, but he's direct, he has a high shot volume. Eze, Gyökeres and Madueke are 3 attacking players Arsenal signed that are direct, that like to run at people, that like to score goals, that like to make things happen, could score out the box, will have shots. And sometimes Arsenal were trying to pass the ball into the net last season, and it was like, just have a shot. and they've brought in 3 players that would just have that shot and aren't looking to just pass the ball into the net because you need game winners. And I think as well as depth, Arsenal looking at players that could be game winners or could make something happen, could create that chance, could have that shot that will make something happen. They needed more dangerous type players. And I think since Eze's come in, Odegaard's gone up a level, and it's a shame he's come off injured again, but he's looked back to his best the last 2 games. Subamende, I thought, needed a couple games to adjust to the league, but I feel like Subamende came off the bench versus West Ham was phenomenal. He was setting the tempo, and I think Subamende setting the tempo was helping Arsenal out big time. You've got Gabriel and Saliba that are solid as always. Saka just is inevitable. He's an unbelievably talented player, and even when quiet, Saka will just produce. You've got the young talents of Dalman and Wanyeri to come in. I think it's pretty mad. And when you look at Arsenal, they've lost 1 game this season, and it took a Szoboszlai wonder of a free kick. It took a Szoboszlai wonder of a free kick to defeat Arsenal this season, and that is it. Because yes, you can get draws to Arsenal, and yes, you can frustrate Arsenal, but to actually beat Arsenal, it takes a lot this season, and that worries me because I'd rather Arsenal win the league than Liverpool, don't get me wrong, but I don't want Arsenal to win the league. I don't want Arsenal to win the league one bit. I don't like Arteta. I don't like Arsenal. But actually, they're very hard to beat. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.